Hello, lovelies. Welcome to Horror 421, the podcast, with your hosts, special effects makeup artist supreme, Elena Morales, and your friendly small-town horror author, Charles Campbell. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the frights in this week's episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Horror 421, the podcast. I am your host, small town horror author Charles Campbell, and with me is my beautiful and talented co-host.
Hello, everyone. I'm Elena, by the way.
That's Elena Morales. She's a special effects makeup designer, and she is so awesome. And today we have a very special guest. He is a music composer. He's worked on several movie soundtracks, and he's a friend of the show. He's done something for us that we were super excited about. He created a song for us. So welcome to the show, Ray.
Glad to be here. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
We're super happy to have you. And his name is Ray Mattis. And if you haven't heard of Ray Mattis, go check him out on YouTube. And I'm sure he has other places you can find him. But he is a very diverse musical. I want to call him a musical genius because he does he does some pretty good work.
Thank you.
But anyway, I'll go ahead and get started. So, Ray,
yes,
tell Elena and I both what got you started in the music business and how it angled into horror anthems per se.
That's a good question. Believe it or not, my love for music started, of all places, with a Duran Duran poster. Now, let me elaborate.
That's a solid answer.
Yeah,
Duran Duran is fucking amazing, and we will not judge you here. This is not the space for judgment.
Right?
Her name is Rio, baby.
Yeah, right. When I grew up, I was an only child for the first 10 years of my life. And where I grew up, I grew up in a house, but we had an acre and a half of land with no next door neighbors. So it was me, my imagination, and whatever I could muster up to keep myself occupied. And I was the youngest out of all my cousins. So there was definitely that when they would come down to visit, there was definitely that like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer kind of thing where I wasn't allowed to play in their reindeer games because they were always older than me. Well, one day I was over my aunt's house and her daughter, Paula, she's about 4 or 5 years older than me, was upstairs with my other cousin, Kim. And I went upstairs to use the bathroom. And when I walked back out, they called me in the bedroom real quick. And they were like, Ray, come here. And I walked in and I was like, what, guys? And they pointed to this Duran Duran poster on the wall. And they were like, who's your favorite? And I never heard of it. They were obviously crushing over the guys in Duran Duran. And I guess I had to be the icebreaker, whatever. And I'm just like, I don't know. And I pointed, and there was one guy that had a Coca-Cola can, and I like Coke. So I went, well, that guy. And I remember my cousin Paula got, she was like, see, I told you he's cuter than, and they started at it. And I was just completely over my head, but I got to hang out with them. So you better believe that next birthday and Christmas, it was, can you buy me Duran Duran? Can you buy me Duran Duran? Thinking, hey, if I listen to these guys, maybe I'll be able to hang out with the cool kids, you know?
Damn right.
Right. So that was the initial spark of it. And I never had MTV. So when I would go over to my cousin's house, I would put on MTV in hopes to see in Duran Duran, thinking that's all they probably play is Duran Duran. That's all I listen to. And then when I saw other videos and Michael Jackson's Thriller, I was just like, wow. So that was like the initial spark into liking music. And fast forward to 6th grade, I went into my homeroom class and I had this god awful beaver cleaver haircut. And I was like, oh, dear God, first day of school, you're going into 6th grade and you look like fucking beaver cleaver, pardon my language.
It's fine. Say anything you want here.
Cool. So I get seated, thank God, next to the only other kid in my class with a beaver cleaver haircut. And we clicked. His name was Bill Scudda. To this day, he's my best friend. I was his best man at his wedding. He was we're still like this together. And I sat next to him. I complimented him on his haircut. And about a day or two later, he was in the back of the room looking at, I don't know if you know, Charles, do you remember a magazine back in the day called Circus? And they would always have like hard rock and right. And I walked in the back of the room, and him and this other guy, Rob Monroe, were looking at a circus magazine. And up in this time, it was Duran Duran and Billy Idol. And I looked over their shoulder and I saw a picture of Guns N' Roses and was just like, are those human beings? Like, oh my God, they look like that. And of course, well, now I want to listen to those guys. That's what the cool kids are listening to. And I went out and bought Guns N' Roses. And yeah, about a week later, Rob Monroe gave me a mixtape of Metallica, and that was it. I was like, holy shit, I have never heard music like this in my life. And that's what sold me on it. I became great friends with Bill. By ninth grade, we were hanging out, and one day he came over to my house and was like, yo, if you're in a band, what would you want to name it? I was like, I don't know. I think Capital Punishment sounds cool. I was like 14, 15 years old, And he's like, me too. What instrument would you want to play? And don't say bass, because that's what I'd want to play. And I was like, well, I guess guitar. And he's like, cool. When do you think you can get one?
This feels like Step Brothers. Did we just become best friends?
Exactly. And that's what I asked for Christmas. My dad, my parents divorced, and I asked both my mom and my dad. My mom was like, money's a little tight. See if your old man can. I call him up. He's like, yeah, I'll see what I can do. And he bought me my first electric guitar and an amp. And I remember looking at it going, now I got to learn how to play this thing, and that's how it started. I was in a band before we could even play music. Yep.
That's an amazing way to start. Like,
that's a great story.
And I remember after about a week of fiddling around with it, I went over to Bill's house, and he had his bass that he couldn't play. And I was like, dude, I wrote a riff. And he was so excited. He's like, let's hear it, man. And I put my finger all the way up on the highest part of the neck, and I went, bink, bink, bink. I just moved my finger up and down the neck, not playing really anything. He's like, that's cool. We could go. Yeah.
You're just tapping along.
Yep. And then I learned how to read tablature, and that was it. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Good fun.
I can tell you got a pretty diverse musical background. What got you in the composing realm? Because I've heard some of the beats you've dropped, and the thing you did for Elena and I love that. I mean,
we absolutely adored that.
Thank you.
We loved it a lot. So I want to get into that a little bit. How did you get into that? How did you start working with Henrik? How did you do the weekly spooky theme? I want to know all that
stuff.
That's
a very long story, so I'm glad we have a long time. Excuse me. Well, with the music thing in the band, I learned how to read tablature and everything. And all throughout high school, we were in this punk-ish metal band. Get out of high school, and suddenly it was like, well, guys, we're 18 years old now. We're getting old. We're not touring the world like we said we were going to be at 18 years old. Guess we'll go to college. And, so my whole thing was, okay, I'm going to go to college. And I actually abandoned the whole concept of music. I thought it was done for. And I went to college and majored in criminal justice. I was going to be the cop that got cats out of trees for old ladies and help kids cross the street kind of thing. And
you had a backup plan. So, that's good.
Yeah, but the problem was I had all this equipment. I was the guy in the band that bought the recording equipment, the amps, the guitar. And I'm like, well, I still want to do music, but I can't play drums. I can't play bass. What the hell am I going to do? And one day I walked into a music store, and it was a godsend. There's a company called Boss, and they put this thing out called a DR5, and it looks like a keyboard, but there's 6 rows of keys and columns, and they represent the 6 strings on a guitar. And it was a keyboard set up for guitars. And I was like, that's great. And the other thing that you could do with it was plug your guitar in, record a riff, and then it would loop it. And just with a flick of a dial, it could sound like a bass. It could sound like a piano. And that's when I was like, wow, what I can do with this. And I started writing riffs and then music on top of that. So then I really had to kind of start learning the theory game. Like I told you, I can't sing for shit. I sound like a cat in a tornado if I try and sing. So I was like, well, I got to do music, and that's my thing. So what can I do? I like horror movies. And then one day I was up late. I'm practically an insomniac. And I was up really late, and I went, I know what I'll do. I'll write scary music, but I'll put it over a hip hop beat. This was long before Insane Clown Posse and all those kind of horror rap bands were doing that. And I was like, that's what I'll do. And then I got a sampler and I was like, ooh, now I can sample dialogue and stretch it. So I can sample dialogue from my favorite movies. And I just started doing that, instrumentals, and it started getting played on college radio, this, that, and the other. And I ended up in Westchester University. And to make a very long story short, I had an elective, a choice of elective. I was like, oh, I'll take fine arts music. I like music. I don't really know a whole lot about it. It's not in the realm of criminal justice, but damn it, it's something. And lo and behold, I let my professor listen to this song that I did. And he looked at me and was like, yeah, it sounds like spooky music that you'd hear in a horror movie. And then more bells went off in my head. And I was like, you know what? I might have something here. And kind of kept on that for the longest time. There's a lot of good stories in between that. But fast forward all the way to 2006. And I was going to go out to Cinema Wasteland for a convention. And I bought a CD of mine just to listen to for the drive. And the first Cinema Wasteland I went to, this very eccentric young man with a handlebar mustache and very colorful pants approached me, and he was extroverted, and he sounded like, and I mean this in the best possible way, he sounded like an awesome car salesman. He just came up to me. He's like, boy, have I got something for you. And he was holding this DVD called Faces of Schlock, and he gave it to me. And he was like, yeah, so for just $10, you can have that. And I'm like, you know what? At the time I had money, and I was like, I'll support independent people. No problem. I gave it to him. I watched it. It was what it was. Cool. Down the line, I watched Babysitter Massacre, and I am a lover of slasher movies, and that had everything I wanted in it. And I was like, I got to catch the name of the son of a bitch that made this. And then I saw Henrik Couteau, and I'm like, wait, no. And I went like running over to my DVD shelf and was like, oh, that's the same fucking Henrik Couteau. No,
that's the kid.
So 2006, I go out to Cinema Wasteland, like I said, and I had this CD, and lo and behold, there he was at the table, and I'm like talking to my now wife about it, and she's like, you know what, you could be charismatic. See if you could be a pimp and try and pimp your music off to him. And I'm like, hey, I got this. And without shame, I went up to him like the slut that I am and was like, hey, I record music, and blah, 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 blah. Gave him the CD and my number, and he was like, yeah, great, I'll listen to it, and maybe you'll hear from me. And I honestly thought it was lip service. Then about, I don't know, 3-4 months, whatever it was later, he reaches out to me and he's like, hey, I'm doing a short on YouTube. You want to get your feet wet? And I was like, do I? And it got a lot of views, and a couple of people in the comments section said that they liked the music. And I can't speak for Henrik. I don't know if that's stuck in his head or not, but lo and behold, months later I get, how do you want to do your first feature film? And I was like,
that is awesome. Elena and I are big proponents of supporting independent artists.
Same.
Because we are independent artists.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's a similar way Elena and I met. She walks up to my table and I'm doing my spiel. I'm not as charismatic as Henrik, but I'm charismatic enough. I give the pitch and, you know, kind of roped her in a little bit. She said, okay. So she bought a couple books, and then we just became friends after that. So, you know, she'd see me at the convention the next year. Well, I'm talking about the Days of the Dead in Atlanta. I haven't been to conventions all over the country like a lot of other folks. I've been to Atlanta and Charlotte, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
But that's where we met and struck up our relationship, and it's turned into this podcast. She's done several book covers, and
now I'm on his koozies too, so people can buy my face.
They can buy her face.
There you go. There you go.
And he's wearing my face on a shirt right now.
Right now, yep.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's so cool.
So, this is where she works in the during the Halloween season.
Dig it. So if you're ever in Georgia and want to go to Douglasville, see us be scurry.
They are horrific in a good way.
Okay.
But I just wanted to throw that in there because we totally get where you're coming from around the independent artist and
Yeah.
what you got to do to put yourself out there, and that's a big step, putting yourself
Yeah.
out there, because with that comes rejection, and not
Oh
everyone likes
yeah.
my books, and that's okay. I don't really care, just as
Yeah.
long as
Such
they're
a hard
talking
thing
about
to do is put your art out somewhere
Oh,
for somebody to
absolutely.
look at it because you're like, is everybody gonna like it? Do I suck? And if you get like one bad comment out of maybe
Oh
100, it ruins your fucking day.
yeah.
And
Oh,
people
you're
don't
not kidding.
understand that. And God forbid you make something that you absolutely hate and you've wasted time.
Mm,
And the amount of time you wasted, you're like, and at the very least, everybody's like, but at least you practice. No, no,
yeah.
no, no, no,
The
no, no.
the t-
I
the
did
toughest.
not appreciate myself. I did not appreciate my time being wasted, my materials.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was telling him it's frustrating with music too, especially with me and not singing, to get somebody to just listen to music without words.
Mhm.
And I can't tell you how many times I'll have people over and be like, "Yo, I wrote the song. You want to hear it? Oh yeah, man, put it on." And 30 seconds into it, the cell phones come out, and I'm like, "Oh,
You can't
great."
even feel the music, man.
Yeah, yeah. It's
well,
so
I'll
I feel you.
I'll tell you today, I've got a nice cushy work from home job, which I love, and that affords me time to listen to music as I work. So today I sat down and I listened to Night Roads Part 1 and 2, and
Oh,
I kind
thank
of
you.
got lost in it. I mean,
Good.
it's just a good, and I'll probably write to it now that I've listened to it
Oh,
because
good. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
yeah,
I'm so glad.
I write to all kinds of music. Other authors say I can't write shit with music playing, and some say, yeah, I need this type of music, but I can't write without music, if that makes sense. So,
That makes perfect sense. When I used to
Mhm.
do homework and study and all that shit, I could listen to music, but oddly, I couldn't listen to music with lyrics. Somebody talking,
Mhm.
I would start listening to what they were saying. Where with music, I could kind of just zone out and then zone into whatever it is I was doing and kind of get in that frame of mind of, whatever it I was reading or writing. So yeah, I totally sound you on that. Totally
Have you
sound you
ever
on that.
thought of doing like a lo-fi beats setup? I don't know if you've ever watched that on YouTube. It's kind of like I think it's chill session lo-fi beats, and they
Yeah,
just do. It's one of my favorites because there's no words. You can zone out.
yep.
It's a relaxing
I am
thing.
subscribed to it. Yep.
I love that channel.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. What I'd ultimately like to do is get a collection, and I mean a collection of songs together, about 2 hours worth. I don't know if I want to do the same genre or bounce around with different genres. I'm thinking the same because people are going to be feeling a certain kind of mood and they're going to want to tune into that, and but I was thinking about getting about 2 hours of music and separating them with the sound of somebody turning a radio dial and just putting that
I
on. And
adore that.
yeah, and you could just kind of sit back and chill with it.
What if it was like one of those old school radios, like the horror radio stations they used to have, like
Yes.
that?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
That
yeah,
would be
Yep.
really cool.
that would be
Yep.
cool.
What was they had this one episode, I think it was called The Whisperer, and you can find it on YouTube.
Okay, I have to check that out.
Utterly horrifying. It actually gives it's just the beginning part. They have this part and it's like the Whisperer. And I was like, oh David, I don't
Yeah.
like it.
Yep. And that's the strange thing about music, like whispers, like you said, it
Mhm.
just certain things you can count on for creepiness. Whispers being one of them. Children laughing. Children
That's a
laughing.
horrifying sound.
You write a
Especially-
creepy tone and then put a child laughing under that. Holy shit, dude.
Especially at 3 o'clock in the morning when you don't have kids.
Yeah, and your
Right,
lights are
right.
fucking off. It's dead ass dark.
Right.
You're like, I wonder what that could be.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go
yeah.
check it out.
Yep. Well, and I got to give a shout out to a guy, Ryan Bedino. When I got out of college, I ran into this guy, Ryan Bedino. And at the time, like I said, I had only learned music from tablature. So I would listen to a song that I like, go buy the tablature, look at it, find out how they played it on guitar. And that was that. And write my own music on the side. And one day we were hanging out. I met him and everything. Turned out he was a musician and we were playing each other's music. And when it came to my turn, I played him a song and he's kind of listening to it. And he looked at me and he's like, how did you do that? You started the phrasing off in a major, then changed it to a minor and ended on a flattened fifth. How'd you do that? And I went, excuse me? And he's like, Baking powder. What was that? Repeat that. And and he was like, "Wait, you never learned?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Wow, okay, sit down, man." And through him, I learned theory, and I remember listening to the band Tool with him. And that's when I finally started to learn about time signature and how every song doesn't have to be boom, clack, boom, boom, clack. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can change the time signatures. And that was paramount because when I was a little kid, I snuck downstairs to watch the movie Halloween, the 1978 original version.
The
And
best version.
right. And that movie scared me to my core. And but I couldn't wrap my hand around it. And it wasn't until I learned about time signatures that I realized that John Carpenter's score is in a 5/4. If you tap your fingers to it, your hand will hit on the 5 or the 10 every time the phrase repeats. And that extra beat purposely makes you feel uncomfortable and off. And so you better believe when I'm scoring a music, if I really want the viewer to kind of feel unsettled and off, change the time signature. Change the time signature. Your natural rhythm of your body is in a 4/4, and when that's thrown off, everything is thrown off. The rhythm of the scene, and it's very unsettling. Very
We have
unsettling.
this one vinyl we bought, and it was by complete happen chance. We were in Cartersville. We have a rock and shop store, is what it's called.
Okay.
And I wanted a Christmas vinyl, like the old school, like Christmas songs. Like I know that sounds stupid, but my mom and I used to decorate to it, and that was just
That's
always
cool.
paramount. Like when I moved out, I said I need to have one, and needs to happen. And we got it, and we were playing it one day, and it gets to the one song, "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas," but it's warped, and it's like, "Have yourself." And now it was in our Christmas haunt, and it's literally the most like, ooh,
Frightening.
I hate that noise. And now they used it in our haunt, and I was like, yes.
Yeah.
But like you said, just warp it just a little bit, and it's not. You're like,
yeah. For the layman out there that doesn't know music theory, the first song that I ever learned how to play on guitar was the song Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath. And that opening riff that's very haunting. When normal bands write and record rock and roll music, they'll tend to use what's called a power chord, a root 5 power chord. It's in all rock and roll, right? And Black Sabbath, in that opening riff, they flattened the 5th, which meant that one of those notes, they just moved it down a half step, just 1 fret. And it's so unnerving, and it's really unsettling. And come to find out that historically speaking, that was known as the Devil's Triad. And believe it or not, back in the 17th century, if you played that, you could be put to death because it's so off-putting that only the devil would listen to that. And I kid you not, look up the Devil's Triad. It's the real deal. But that was paramount to me because I didn't know theory at the time, and I just liked how that sounded. So you better believe every song that I was writing as a kid, I was throwing that flattened 5th in there. And any music teacher will tell you, hey, you really shouldn't play the flattened 5th unless you're playing the blues or doing that unsettling shit. And that was a blessing in disguise that was the first song I ever learned how to play, or I probably wouldn't be writing creepy music to this day.
as far as with mediums with your music, do you prefer playing strictly guitar? Do you prefer making the beats? Then, like, what is your favorite medium to make music with?
I write everything on a guitar first. Everything comes with my guitar. Where I'm inspired, different places. The song that I wrote for you guys, I was simply watching the episode with Henrik. And then I went back, and what I do a lot of times with movies and stuff is I'll watch a movie and then I'll go back and I'll watch it again and mute it. And when I mute it, I'll pick my guitar up and start playing along with what I'm watching. And that's what I did with you guys. And I just kept playing the beginning over and over and over again and started noodling around on my guitar until you heard that opening riff. And it was like, all right, got it. And then I just ran upstairs, laid it down real quick, and then the rest follows: bass, drums, so on and so forth. So everything I usually start off on my guitar. And then once it's written out, I'll look at it and go, okay, I wrote that on my guitar, but it'll sound better with a keyboard, a piano, a this, that, or the other. So that's guitar, to answer your question, is my number one go-to.
What kind of guitar do you have?
I have.
I want to see your child.
This is one of them. It's Eddie Van Halen's.
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, that's one of them. And I have another one downstairs that's a Gibson SG, an all black SG, one that Angus Young from AC/DC plays. Standard.
Oh, wow.
Not a custom. Yeah. Amps, depending on what the song is, I'll either play through a Fender amp or Orange amp. If I'm distorting it, I'll play through Orange. I used to play through Marshall, but
you know what's funny is everybody thinks I'm crazy when I say this. The sound in the Orange one is not as clear as the other ones to me. I think it just gives it like a weird muffled sound to it.
Yes.
Like with voices, especially guitar, it's cool. It sounds different, but like with voices, it distorts the voice so much. You're kind of like when you're at the concert and the big thing, I'm like, why is this? Everybody's like, it's fine. I'm like, no, it just sounds, it's not as clear. It's just fuzzy.
I agree. That's why I only use the Orange for distorted things. If I have to run any fuzz through it, it's through my Orange amp. But primarily, I record with clean tones with like a little bit of gain. So I'll run it through my Fender, have a couple pedals and whatnot. I'm a pedal whore. I love me crazy ass weird pedals that make my guitar sound like shit that a guitar shouldn't sound like. Tom Morello was.
I love watching the videos when guitarists, like when you guys just sit there and just make the beats, and then you have the guitar going, then you have the pedal that keeps that noise, then you have the other one for that one. that fascinates me because my brain does not work that way. But it's so fascinating to watch. I'm like, how does one do all of the things at one time?
Yeah. With me, it's all track recording. So I'll come up with the main melody, figure out what the tempo is in my head. Then the drums, I do it a couple different ways. I have some drum machines, and then I have another little electronic drum pad that you can actually hit with and a kick, and it sounds like a real drum set. You'd really never know the difference. It's what I use for night roads and stuff like that. But
Very nice.
Yep, and track by track by track by track. And,
Well, we know you're a horror nerd as well, and horror has influenced a lot of your musical decisions. So let's get into some of the horror that drives you. What are some of your favorite movies and or books that you may have picked up or watched? Let us know what kind of movies Ray likes. We've talked ad nauseum about it. Between ourselves, but we want to know.
So. Movies from an actual from a movie standpoint, like there are movies that I like just because of the soundtrack. I'm not including them. So the first Halloween, absolutely. The Thing is probably my favorite horror movie. 84, 86, I think. John Carpenter.
That's a good movie.
Yeah, that's 1982 with
Face.
82. Okay, with
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah. That's my favorite movie of all time. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, of course, The Exorcist. I like a lot of David Cronenberg movies. David Cronenberg is kind of like him and John Carpenter are probably my two favorite directors that I flock to. If you were to line up the big guys, Romero, Raimi, Wes Craven, Carpenter, and Cronenberg, I would probably go to Carpenter and Cronenberg before I would go to the others. Not taking anything away from those guys. I mean, they're legends and rightly so. But I like a lot of 70s movies. That's probably my favorite era of horror movies because I grew up in the 80s.
Yeah, you got Elena's ears perked up. Yep.
Well, because they're just getting into that not too gory phase, but the gore is so much cheese that it just makes it so good. But the plot, there's such a deep plot in each one because there's 17 different things going on, and by the time you're like Sherlocked it, you're like, what the shit? It's so like they just have really, really good plots.
Absolutely, and subtleties in them. I don't know if you ever saw Martin with George Romero, but by George Romero, excuse me. Really, I really enjoyed it. I mean, the whole time you're kind of scratching your head, wondering if this kid really is a vampire or is he just knucking futz in his head. It's really, and there's no, I don't want to give the ending away, but Good stuff.
Did you ever watch the one I was talking about on our last podcast? If everybody heard me, the guy with the blonde prostitutes. That sounds a lot more vague than it needs to be, but we're gonna leave it at that.
Okay.
It's the night that Evelyn left the grave or rose from the
heard
grave.
Of it. I heard of it. I haven't.
Do you have
seen
Shudder?
It. Yes. Oh,
it's
no,
on
I don't
Shudder.
know. I don't, but I okay, cool.
I think you can still rip it online.
Yeah, a good buddy of mine has Shudder, so it's like I practically have Shudder because we watch
we
movies
have
together.
Shudder. We all have Shudder.
Right.
Shout out to the best friends with Shudder.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that should definitely be on your list because that one is, like you said, it's nuck and futz. By the time you figure it out, you're like, what?
Yeah. Okay, dig it. Yeah. I love shit like that. Okay. It's not quite a horror movie, but I've recommended it to a lot of people, and everyone that's seen it's come back and be like, yeah, good recommendation. But not a lot of people have seen it. Came out, give or take, about maybe 5 or 7 years ago. Cheap Thrills with David Koechner. Have you guys seen this fucking movie? Holy shit. Do yourself a favor and check it out. David Koechner is in it, but he plays a serious role. Not the main character, the main guy. I'm drawing a blank on his name. I'm embarrassed to say that I forget it. But give you a brief little summary. In the beginning of the movie, the guy loses his job and gets a notice of an eviction put on his door. And he decides to go to a bar and just kind of wet his whistle and forget about it. Runs into another friend. And his friend calls him over to meet this character, David Koechner, who's there with this girl. And he says, after a little while, he says, hey, $5 to the first person who downs their shot. And then after a little while, it's, hey, $50 to the first person that goes over there and smacks that waitress on her ass. Then it's $150 to the first person that punches the bounce, and it keeps going on and on. Great movie. And it seriously asks the question, like, what would you do to feed your family? Like, how far would you go? Great movie. Check it out.
Did you ever watch Would You Rather?
Yes. Yeah.
Did that one not like the ending? I was like, you did all of that shit.
Yeah.
You did all of that for this little shit here.
Right.
Noted.
Yeah.
Noted. Like, I'm going to a different country. I'm going to Europe. Fuck you. Bye. See you later. Right. I did all this shit. I'm buying. Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
Yep. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So yeah, a horror movie with me started as a little kid on Saturday mornings after Saturday morning cartoons. I live in the Philadelphia area. There used to be a TV show on called Creature Double Feature, and they would show Universal horror movies. So that like the classic Dracula films and the classic Frankenstein, this, that, and the other.
Karloff, all those guys.
Yeah. And as a 5-6-year-old kid, I'd watch them and go, oh, this shit doesn't scare me. And I was getting balls for a little kid thinking like, oh, yeah, I got this. And then I told you I snuck downstairs and watched Halloween. And
blew your damn mind.
Yeah.
The first movie that ever scared me, I think, was The Shining. I was 8.
Oh, yeah.
And that screwed me up for a long time. And I watched it actually last year for the first time as an adult because I actually read the book and was like, this is not as good as I remember.
Well, this will tell you how old I am, and I may have mentioned this on a previous podcast, and if I did, I'm sorry, listeners, I'm saying it again. But when I was a kid, I was in 3rd grade, and they sent notes home with us. I was in 3rd grade. It was the network television premiere, which they cut the shit out of it, of The Exorcist. And they sent notes home with all the kids in my elementary school, making the parents aware that movie was coming on Monday night, and do not let your kids watch it.
Man, the satanic panic that movie caused.
Oh my God, right?
God. And then if you've watched, I think Cursed Films on Shudder, it talks about everything that she had to go through, Linda Blair.
Yeah.
Wow. I felt so bad for her. Like, she actually was like, it broke her back. And that screaming is real. It is very real. It is just very like, I don't even like talking about it because like, ugh.
Yeah,
does that movie still scare you, Charles?
Oh, that one holds up. Yeah. That one.
Have you watched it like recently?
I watch it probably once every other year. I haven't watched it
as a choice, or like, is it just one of those? It's on.
No. I have the DVD and I pop it in, but I've got to be, ready for it because it's still.
They're making the TV show out of it now.
Really? Whatever they make now won't be like that. That's you go back to 70s stuff.
And the guy in the hospital was an actual serial killer. in that movie. He was an actual real serial killer. Fun fact of the day.
Nice.
Yeah.
He was the murderer.
Yeah, that movie still holds up, and it scares the shit out of me when I watch it.
The book made me very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I read it. I never read it, and I was like, I've never watched the movie. I want to read it before I watch it, and I did. And I had nightmares.
The book is worse.
Well, that one particular scene, it's like 5 pages of in-depth detail that I did not want nor need in my life, in my brain, in my head space.
Yep. Way to bring the podcast down.
Sorry, guys.
Appreciate that.
Do you have I know you said that you have your favorite film directors and things like that, but do you have a favorite horror movie franchise other than Halloween that holds tried true?
That is a darn good question. Favorite franchise other than Halloween? Boy, I want to say Friday the 13th, but I kind of bailed on Friday the 13th once once the remake came, and don't get me wrong, I went and I saw the remake and I appreciate it for what it was, but Friday the 13th just kind of holds a special place for me as a kid, because I mentioned earlier with my cousins and everything, all being older than me, I remember them sitting around talking about how scary Friday the 13th was. But the first one that I actually saw was part 5, and as you know, part 5 isn't very scary at all.
And it's not Jason.
So when I saw part 5, I was like, oh, again, I kind of got the little kid balls. I was like, oh, I got this. I kind of worked my way back and got through Friday 13th 2 and so that kind of hold a special place. And then when they started coming around to theaters, and I was old enough to sneak into theaters and see them, that was pretty exciting. Where at that time, the Halloween franchise kind of stopped for a little while before they kind of picked up again. So that was really cool. So Friday 13th, to answer your question.
Solid answer.
Yeah. Solid answer.
Yeah.
There's so many of them too. So
yeah. Yep.
So you kind of gave us a little story on how you met Henrik and got into his world a little bit. I still want to know how you came up with the weekly spooky theme.
The weekly spooky theme. Oh man, he reached out to me over Facebook and told me that he was starting this thing, Weekly Spooky, and basically told me what it was. And he said, I was wondering if he could do the theme song for it. Yeah, no problem. And when he originally told me, it was, the scary stories. So the first piece that I actually wrote from it was really sparse kind of like percussion and just eerie strings and stuff like that. And I completely missed a mark. I really wasn't on the same page with what he was going for. And when I sent it to him, he was like, not bad. I like it, but not for this. I was thinking something more along the lines of like Tales from the Crypt. And as soon as he said that, I was like, I got it, dude. And I logged off and I ran downstairs and I grabbed my guitar and I just sat for about 45 minutes doing a scale until I got something that didn't sound like I was ripping Tales from the Crypt off, but had the same kind of feel to it. And once I got that, again, back upstairs, and I knew that probably shouldn't be played on guitar. It needed something else. So I had the choir going and all the strings. And it's probably, aside from an ad that I did for David Moliere for a book that he wrote, it's probably my favorite thing that I wrote for some kind of media, whether it be, a podcast, an ad, a movie, so on or so. It's my favorite thing that I did.
Yeah, I can hear it in my head right now.
Yeah.
So been fortunate enough to have it is very catchy. So I've been fortunate enough to have a few stories read on Weekly Spooky, and he does such a great job with those. Yeah. So if anyone wants to hear short horror stories from different authors all over the country, go to weeklyspooky.com and listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, because I listen to the news story every Wednesday. So I enjoy them. And then I get to hear your tune in before the story starts. So that's awesome.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. And probably my favorite short that I did was Stirring. I don't know if you got a chance to see that, but if you haven't, check it out. Henrik did it. and it was a Christmas thing, and I got to play a Christmas carol in the beginning of it. I won't say which one. And I would mentioned earlier about the flattened fifth and how off it is. I played the same exact thing at the end, but with the flattened fifth added. So if you're curious after the podcast and you want to hear the difference between what a Christmas carol sounds like when it's written versus one written where there's the flattened fifth going along with, yeah, it totally creepifies it. It's good stuff.
Creepy That's Christmas is always the best Christmas.
Yeah, creepy Christmas. right.
Well, he's done several of those Christmas shorts, and I may have seen it. I just can't remember. I'll have to go look it up again. But
my mom is actually quite obsessed with the weekly spookies.
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
She called me the other day. She goes, "When is Charles going to have another one of those stories on there? I really like when I can read his book, but I can read it with it being read to me. I love it. It just gives it a whole atmospheric touch to it, So, but yeah, she actually really likes the show.
Yeah, well, yeah, he, like I said, there's a different story every week, and if it's not your cup of tea one week, then just check it out next week.
Yeah,
as it's so diverse in what it offers, so it's awesome. I did check out a couple other things on YouTube, so I want you to touch on those if you can. Tell me a little bit about the Ode to Christopher George. How'd that come about?
So David Molier was one of the first people that I can remember commenting on my music, and that just stuck with me. It was like one of my first positive comments that I read, and I just remembered the name, and lo and behold, he friended me on Facebook, and then I started to check out his page, Everybody Dies, and he did this fucking Christopher George song on his YouTube page, and it got stuck in my head. So I, of course, did the proper thing and forced my wife to watch it, naturally. Misery Loves Company. And it got stuck in her head. And, we would be sitting around on a Sunday and I'd be cleaning the house and then start going, Christopher George. And you're like, stop it. That's going to get stuck in my head. And, I was doing this metal song and I had finished it up. And there was this interlude part where I had drums, but I had no music written over it. And I'm like, what should I do? Should I solo? And I'm playing it. I'm playing it on my iTunes, and then go over to Google, and I'm searching around. I go on YouTube, and I was like, Christopher George. And when I hit play, it came right as my drum interlude came, and it started to kind of line up, and I'm like, no. So I burned it to an MP3 and then went into GarageBand and just cut it up so it would perfectly fit. And yeah, just kind of sat back in amazement. It was like, I got to tell Dave about this. And I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to do a YouTube video. And I put a YouTube video up for him and sent him the link. And he's like, that is too good. That is too good.
Yeah.
When one song drives your whole entire universe.
Right.
For me, it's that guy on a buffalo. Oh. Once it's there, it's there. You're welcome.
I can't.
Yes, I have done this to us.
I can't. I hate that fucking commercial.
Well, and when they made the commercial out of it, I was like, did I just hear what I think I just heard? I was like, it's been a long time. It's been a really long time. I didn't need this in my life, and now it is here.
Yep.
It is here now.
We're going to bring and count to 5.
Right.
All right.
Yep. So that was Ode to George. Yeah.
Well, I jotted down one more note because I did watch one other video. So I've seen Night Roads and Ode to Christopher George. Tell me about Dr. Deranged Love. The music behind that.
Doctor. Oh, you guys. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. For a second, I was like, wait, it confused me there for a second. Dr. Deranged Love. Okay. I got to tell you about the title first off.
I was about to say, I'm really a big fan of the title. Like, I was like, what?
Okay, so
I was trying to catch him. I was trying to catch him napping, but he knew what it was. But go ahead.
yeah. Dr. Deranged. It's funny because when I shut my eyes and I think of the song, I think of the logo and the Horror 421 podcast logo. So before I tell you this story, God, the worst thing about me and music is when I write it and I record it. Of course, I record it onto a computer. I've done away with 16 tracks and all that shit. When I record stuff on a computer and I have to title it, I never have a title in my head. I never do. When Henrik's stuff comes in, you would think that the logical thing to do would be to be like, okay, Django Unchained soundtrack. No, I'll title it like Spaghetti and Meatballs, whatever I had for dinner. If there's dust on my wall, then it'll be called Wall Dust, okay? So with that one, I needed a title and I needed something, a title that would fit. And I'm sitting back on my chair going, what the hell can I do? And I'm looking around my room and I look at my DVD rack and I see Dr. Strangelove. And I've always been like the class clown kind of dude that can take a word and twist it. And I'm like, Dr. Strangelove. Now that wouldn't be something that they would talk about, but a horror movie. Deranged, Dr. Deranged. Okay, cool. And I titled it, posted it, and then as soon as now actually in my iTunes, it's just Horror 421. I've gone.
I knew there was a story behind that title. That's why I did it that way.
Yep. It was looking on my DVD rack, seeing Dr. Strangelove, and making it fit your
You
podcast.
had a very John 5 and the Creatures vibe to that song.
Yes, thank you. I love John.
I got to watch them live in Atlanta. They played at the Drunken Unicorn, and it's the smallest venue. It is very, very small, but you could literally, from where we were standing, spit on the man, and he was just awesome because he's such a nerd too, and I appreciate that because he's like, man, I just like to pick on the guitar, man. You guys came all the way out here just for me. Yeah. He's awesome, and they had these 3 guys there, and they were all retired, so they were getting a little turnt over there in the corner, and he was just like playing this one slow ballad. And you can hear him on the video having this guy, he goes, man, that's just fucking outrageous. Fucking outrageous, man.
Nice.
Such a good concert. Highly recommend if you ever get a chance to go.
Those venues are the best places to see concerts.
Yep. So and it'll never happen again.
Yeah.
Probably ever.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen some doozy of concerts. Probably the most memorable concert I've ever been to was Gwar.
I love Gwar. I've been to 3.
Yeah. So we went to the Gwar Quills Christmas tour, and usually when a band
Christmas, oh my god, I went to one in December actually, so I can.
Okay, and usually when the main act takes the stage, they'll dim the house lights and have some kind of. Not them, no. It was like they had everything set up, and Santa Claus came out, but he looked off, like his head didn't look right, and I remember looking at him going, "What the fuck is wrong?" And he's shaking a bell, and then suddenly somebody came out with a chainsaw and lopped Santa Claus's head off, and blood squirted up in the air, and then the band came out without warning, and boom, right in. I was like, wow. Yeah, I took the train home at about 1:30 in the morning from Center City,
covered
Philadelphia.
in blood, looking like a psycho.
Yep. And I remember walking on the subway train, and everybody just looking at me, and this one guy going, shit, what did this cracker do? And I was like, oh my God, you just said a racial slur to me. Yeah, wow, yeah.
Nice.
Good on the racial slur, you know.
See, what was funny was like the first time we went, I had never been, and I always wanted to go, just never caught it, and we went, and well, we get back home, and it was on a Sunday night. We get back. He had to leave because we still weren't living together at the time, and he had to leave to go home. It's like 2:00 in the morning. I get to the sink, right? And I'm like, what the, it's not coming off. And he's like, gotta go, bye. And I'm like, I have patients tomorrow. It's like a 30+ patient day. What the fuck? Yep. So I'm like, it's not coming off. I don't know what to do. I'm like trying to make some type of concoction. So the next day I got as much as I could off. and I had like this big red area on my face. There's no hiding it. You can put as much makeup on as you want. You got rosacea. You have a huge birthmark. Somebody's like, "Did you get new blush?" I was like, "I fell right on in it this morning. Just fell straight in it."
Yep. I snuck into my house and was out in the garage trying to scrub it off, and I woke my mom up, and she came out in the garage and took one look at me, and she's like, "Where the hell did you go tonight? You told me you're not." I was like, "Oh man,
man, you should say, Mom, there was a horrible accident. It was a 5-car crash. I had to get people out of the car."
It dies down to be pink. It's not red. It's like pink, like Teletubby pink.
Yep. That is no joke. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. That was fun times.
Good times.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite? I might have already asked this to you, but if I didn't, I'm sorry.
That's cool.
Do you have a favorite musical artist? I know that's like asking the most biggest question in the world, but
boy, that is favorite. I don't have a singular favorite, but the big ones were Black Sabbath. I got into them at a young age. Still listen to them to this day.
With Ozzy or Dio or both?
Mostly Ozzy. I'll Go to Heaven and Hell with Dio. I do like that album.
That is a good album.
Don't get me wrong. I do like Dio, but Ozzy was kind of like my...
It's Ozzy.
Yeah, it's Ozzy. Early Metallica up until Injustice for All. Really.
My exact sentiments. Early Metallica.
A band called Killing Joke that not a lot of people listen to anymore. I kind of liked how when I listened to them when I was younger, I really liked how they kind of mixed the guitars and keyboards. So that carried over actually a lot into Night Roads, was putting those, they're called Power Saw keyboards in the left and right ear. And probably the biggest one, the two biggest ones would be Tom Waits and Ministry are probably the two biggest guys. I love Tom Waits. I love how I can buy an album and one song can sound like jazz and the other song sounds like blues and the other one sounds like he's banging on tin cans and paper bags and it still sounds like music to me. And Ministry was a game changer for me. I was in a comic book store when I was about 16 or 17 years old, and the song Jesus Built My Hot Rod came over the radio, and I quite literally stopped dead in my tracks and then walked over to Clark, and I was like, who in the hell are these guys? Like, they sound fast like Metallica, but it's their voice. What? Tell me, please. And he's like, they're a band called Ministry. And I went out and I bought The Mind Is a Terrible Thing to Taste. And the first song, Thieves, I could not believe my ears when I heard Thieves. I knew that they were sampling like Full Metal Jacket. That was the first time I heard sampling from movies. I couldn't believe how fast they were playing. It blew my mind. So, Ministry and Tom Waits are probably the two big ones.
Solid answers, too. Ministry is good. Yeah. Ministry's really good.
Yeah, Ministry's good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. And one of my favorite songs from Ministry, of course, Stigmata, which is like one of their classic songs. I bought Al Jurgensen's book. Highly recommend it if you haven't read it yet. And when he got around to talking about Stigmata, he said the big shocker is that when I recorded that in the 80s, there's actually no guitar in it. It's a keyboard, and I used a set of power, and that's where I actually heard about power saws. I looked into it, and I was like, okay, power saws, I'll remember that, and I'll try and find a keyboard or some kind of setting that has a power saw. And much to my pleasant surprise, GarageBand, when I got a Mac and opened up GarageBand, they had a power saw in there. So I was like, great. And I hooked my keyboard up to it and was like, oh, beautiful. I can change the oscillation on it and So, yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah. The sounds you can come up with and the things you do are super
really
unique.
Amazing.
Thank you very much. And that's a big Tom Waits thing. Tom Waits said when most people, and I'm paraphrasing this, when most people go into a hardware store, they see tools. When I go in, I see instruments. And I never forgot that. And some of the sounds that man can get out of household items, and there's a lot of banging and clanking in my songs. If you listen to the percussion in the background, there's a lot of clapping, and I like that. That's all Tom Waits.
Nice.
It's all Tom Waits.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Ray, we enjoyed having you on today. And what I want to do is give you a few minutes to tell our listeners exactly where they can find you. This is your plug time. So whatever you want to say, have at it. The floor is yours.
Great. Well, you can find me on YouTube. You could just search Ray Mattis. Last name is Mattis. Go to my page. I have everything from my own original music up there, from singles that I put out to full albums that are on there. And you can also find me on Bandcamp. If you go on Bandcamp, there exists the one album that actually isn't on YouTube that you can purchase for free. Night Roads will be on there sometime shortly. I'm looking to put that up there in about another month or two. I might want to change the order of the tracks. Not 100% sure on that. But yeah, that's where you can find me. I'm going to be working on some more Henrik movies. I worked on a Western for him, Django Unchained. That'll be coming out soon-ish, a big emphasis on the ish. And yeah, I might be, word has it around the campfire that I might be working on a Babysitter Massacre sequel. So
very nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's just word around the campfire. So
yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right. Elena Morales. Go ahead.
I was going to say thank you guys so much. I can't thank you enough. It was a pleasure. It was great. Thank you.
We love having you on. You're very engaging, and I mean, you were, like I said, very engaging, and your answers were spot on as far as Elena is concerned. You and her hit the music. You're simpatico there, so that's awesome.
I love music.
Well,
but thank you for making us music. That is such a special thing you did for us. And
next time we chat, if we ever chat again in the future, ask me about security stories, because when I was going to school for criminal justice, I worked security in a myriad of different places. And yeah, if you ever have me on again, or if we're ever chatting on Facebook, everything from an Easter bunny getting mugged to, I can tell you that one real quick.
I'll tell you what. Go ahead and tell us one of your juiciest security stories.
Okay,
we want juicy tea here.
Okay,
we want the stuff that we normally talk about after the podcast. We want it on the air.
My absolute number one favorite call that I ever got, and normally I would hesitate to tell people this because they would always look at me with bewilderment and go, "You can't be serious." But my wife, who's off yonder, is nodding, and I even have the incident report saved. I was working at a college university. I will not say which one because this involved a medical emergency. But this particular college that I was working at, it was summertime. Most of the students go home in the summer. All the ones that are left, they kind of corral into one or two different dorms. And the dorm rooms had a cork strip that went around the perimeter of the room. This is important. The cork strip was used so you could hang posters up. Mm-hmm. There was a male student who was hanging posters up, and he had the thumbtacks in a little plastic container, but he was poking his fingers when he was bending down to pick them up, and he had them on his bed. He was standing up. So he dumped the thumbtacks out on a paper plate, put them up, lost track of time, was late for class. He goes running off to class, gets out of class, says, "Screw it, I'm not going back to my dorm," walks down closest bar, wets his whistle. I'm sitting in my squad car. It was the summertime. Now, I was a patrol officer and an EMT at this particular college. I'm in my squad car, and we had a thunderstorm. It was the worst thunderstorm that summer. Power went out across campus. When power goes out, there's emergency lighting in the halls, but your dorm room is as black as could be. Mm-hmm. And I get a call to respond to this particular hall for report of a burn victim and somebody with several puncture wounds. And I'm like, what? I hit it lights and sirens and go flying there. I arrive on scene, and what I discovered was that my man went to a bar and he met a woman down there. One thing led to another. They decided to go back to his dorm room for a little action. No. They walked back to his dorm room, which was now black because the power went out. She removed all of her clothes, jumped up on his bed and screamed out, my ass. And he's like, "What's wrong with your ass?" And she's like, "I don't know. It fucking hurts." And he's like, "Okay, well," and he got a chair and he turned her around and he lit a Zippo lighter, and there were 8 thumbtacks stuck in her bare ass. He pulled the first one out, the second one, the third one. The comedic gods rained down upon me because she farted into his Zippo. And when I arrived on scene, he had no eyebrow hair left and the top part of his hair was missing. Best call I ever had in my 20 years.
Farted, bro.
Yep.
That's the best story we've had on this podcast so far.
Oh my god.
Hands down.
Yep.
Dear Art the Fart, you have been beaten.
You
have been beaten, sir.
That is by far my favorite call I ever got.
Like, she was holding that in for a minute, though, for it to have that much, like, backfire. Wow.
And the second one was the Easter Bunny. That yeah. But, that's the tops. So there you go.
Wait a minute. How long is the Easter Bunny story? Yeah, go ahead and tell that.
It's been on for 43 minutes. Okay. So, again, I can't mention the particular shopping mall that I was working at, but
all right. Solid.
The company that I worked for was a company called Spectagard, and they had contracted all the shopping malls in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania. So this one shopping mall that I was in, I should begin by telling you that the uniforms that they gave us had a dark blue top. And though it looked like it was buttoned down, there was actually a zipper underneath of it. And that was cool because I could wear my Metallica shirts. I could wear whatever I wanted to. That day I was wearing a Superman shirt. Anyway, I go to work and it was Easter Sunday and mall management decided, you know what? Every Christmas we bring Santa Claus in. We sit his fat ass down in front of JCPenney's. Let's do an Easter Bunny thing, right? So they brought, because I'm tight. So they brought, that's cool, because I'm tight. So they brought this guy in, dressed him up as an Easter bunny, sat him down in front of JCPenney's, and the thing was little kids could sit on his lap. He had this big basket of chocolate eggs, and he would give them a chocolate egg. That was that. I was on the other side of the mall. And I heard this collective screaming that honestly, the first thought that came to my mind was, holy shit, somebody pulled a gun out. It was just this mass hysteria of screaming. So I take off running like a bat out of hell towards the direction of the sound. And I ran the corner to find out that two 15, 16-year-old guys walked straight up to the Easter Bunny and pepper sprayed his ass in front of 200 screaming children. And this guy dressed as a rabbit is kicking and screaming on the ground, rolling around, screaming like a banshee. And all these little kids are crying. The best part of it was after it. Did you ever leave your house in the wintertime and you don't zip your jacket up quite right and it opens up?
Oh, yeah.
Well, right when I rounded the corner, my partner was there. And right when I rounded the corner, my uniform top opened up and he said, all you saw was the Superman as I rounded the corner. It was like, hey, you guys. Exactly, right? So, yeah, Easter Bunny got fucking pepper sprayed on Easter Sunday in front of hundreds of kids. Yeah. And the dudes that did it ran right out to the transit center and were on a bus before anybody could make heads or tails of it.
Nice. And I really hope the Easter Bunny shit in their baskets that year.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'm a small town horror author and I just made notes. So, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Elena.
All right.
Tell us
now
what
time
you do.
to plug myself, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I am JukeboxBaby78 on Instagram as well as on TikTok. You can find all of my body painting, FX stuff, crazy videos, and everything on those two places. If you would like to discuss those personally with me and hit me up for any type of not job opportunities, makeup opportunities, you can DM me on Instagram. I'm also Elena Marie on Facebook. That is where you can see my random rantings about life and kind of just see who I am as a person. And also you can hit me up on Messenger if you have any requests on makeup. Also, you can find us here at Horror 421, the podcast. We do have a new Facebook page. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, all of the things you can do. Shout us out. It is on Facebook. It is Horror 421, the podcast. And we also would like to hear from our audience. So if you guys want to be a little bit more interactive with us and tell us things you want us to talk about, movies, music, things like that, we would love to hear from you guys. We love you, and we just are so amazed at all of the people that have just come to our page and loved us so much. So thank you all for listening to us.
Thank you. Thank you. And I am Charles Campbell. I'm a small town horror author. You can find me at valleyboypublications.com, where you can pick up all my books, the print copies. You can find my books also on Amazon, the ebooks, basically. I'd prefer you go to my website if you want print books. I will ship them and sign them directly to you. As Elena said, we do have a Facebook page, Horror 421 the podcast. You can also find me on Instagram under Charles Campbell Author. You can message us anywhere. You can message us on Facebook, on Instagram. We'll get back to you. If you're out there and you're in the horror world and want to be a guest on the show, reach out to us. We will definitely talk to you and see if we can get you lined up. But anyway,
Come forward
and speak. And once again, we were so happy to have you today, Ray. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
This concludes this week's episode of Horror 421, the podcast. See you guys next time.
Until next time.
I'm going.
We hope you had a horrific time, lovelies. Thank you for tuning in to Horror 421, the podcast. Be sure to like us on YouTube and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.